Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to talk about cynicism and how it can help you in your healthcare journey. And I know cynicism is not a good thing to have. It's typically characterized as a bad trait or a bad quality. And I do agree. I come from a family of very, very cynical people, and we were raised to be very cynical, to be very distrusting of everyone and everything. And if you take it to the extreme, it can actually be a symptom of serious psychological issues. And I think that's kind of where it comes from in my family. It might be more a symptom of psychological problems than just a trait that some people have. But I do come from a family of very, very cynical people, and it has hurt me in the past. But once I learned that I was a cynical person and that I come from very cynical, very paranoid people, you can learn to sort of use it to your advantage. So I was raised to be very distrustful of doctors and medicine and all of that. And I understand now that that was an issue that my parents had, that they, you know, I don't know if it was an issue that they had because they didn't seem to distrust doctors. They seemed to trust doctors just fine. They instilled that in us, in the kids, in me specifically. And I think a lot of that was just to keep us away from doctors, psychologists, things like that, to sort of avoid I don't know, I guess that they felt that maybe we were going to uncover some kind of or say too much, and maybe snitch or something on private matters. Um, and this, of course, can lead to a lot of health issues. And a lot of the people in my family don't go to doctors, or they avoid going to a doctor until they absolutely have to. And it has cost them their lives. And a lot of that is just because of the cynical attitude that we have towards doctors and the medical profession in general. Um, Throughout my time, my almost 20 years, seeing doctors and talking to different doctors, I have learned a lot of things. And I have learned which doctors you can and can't trust, which doctors are being genuine, and which are not. And my cynicism has helped me identify those things. So if you learn to identify, if you learn how to kind of harness your own cynicism and use it in moderation, it can be very helpful. So what are these things that my cynicism has helped me with? Well, it's helped me to ask questions. I was not the type of kid in school that would ask questions. If I didn't know something, I would literally just suffer through it and sometimes even cry because I didn't know how to figure something out. I'd be damned if I asked the teacher any questions or if I went to tutoring and asked for help. And being cynical makes you ask questions because you're always questioning things. You're always questioning the doctors. You're always questioning their motives. And you start asking questions in order to figure out whether, like I said before, whether they're genuine or whether they're being kind of sneaky. And yes, there are doctors who are very sneaky. Um, so, even though I wasn't like that as a kid, and I kind of wish, and again, we were trained to be silent. We were trained not to ask questions as kids, just to comply and go along with everything because that's what we had to do at home. And so we kind of took that into every space of our lives, whether it's school or relationships, things like that. And it's not good when you're very sick and you have to see multiple doctors. It's not good to stay silent. You have to speak up, and you have to question them. Even though sometimes it's like, why would you question a doctor's motives, especially if you're using your insurance? It's not like they're making money off of you. Doctors still have a motive. Sometimes they're just trying to avoid treating you and taking you on as a patient because of your complicated issues. And so sometimes you got to read between the lines to see if that's the case. Um, when it comes to people that have complex issues like Lyme disease or rare conditions, When it comes to Lyme in particular, Lyme, PANS, these illnesses that, where insurance coverage may not be there, um, that's when you really have to really harness this cynicism and ask questions and really question the motive of a doctor, because as you know, a lot of these doctors do not accept insurance and you're paying out of pocket. When you're looking into regenerative therapies like stem cells, exosomes, PRP, even things like ozone therapy, hyperbarics, all of that stuff is out of pocket. And you got to identify whether the doctor is a hustler or whether they know exactly what they're doing. And a lot of these therapies are going to be big. They're going to come to the forefront in the next few years as people are battling long COVID. And you'll see a lot of these doctors too, Lyme literate physicians and things like that. They're going to start treating conditions like this because there's going to be big money in it. It helps you avoid scams and dangerous treatments. I myself have never done IV ozone. My doctor's never recommended it. It just seems like something that's a bit dangerous. I know that there are people out there that have done it that have had great results, but there are also people out there that have done it and have not had good results, and people that have done hyperbarics and not had good results, or they've had a lot of die-off symptoms and it was too harsh for their bodies. So yeah, being cynical about those treatments, and I always have been. I know there are a lot of people that are just, there's like people that are team Western medicine and people that are team alternative medicine, and they just don't, like, it's either one or the other. And I hate to say it, that when you have a complex condition, it can't be one or the other. You have to kind of entertain them both. Entertain them and question both of them, because there's people that are trying to make money off of you. And that's the other thing too, and I've talked about this in my other videos. Who is the practitioner that you're looking at? I know that there are chiros and naturopaths and nutritionists or whatever, energy healers, whatever, that are very knowledgeable about alternative medicine and all of these types of things. And they sound very smart. But unfortunately, that's not, they're not qualified. And I hate to kind of be the bearer of bad news for a lot of people that like chiros, but when it comes to a complex condition like Lyme disease or, the other ones, pandas, things like that, that maybe traditional Western medicine doctors won't treat, these doctors are not qualified to treat it. Even if they're very knowledgeable about it, they are not qualified to treat it. And you really need to be cynical when it comes to stuff like that. If it's not an MD or, an OD, I would just avoid it. Even if they're very smart, even if they've, gotten it right a few times, I would just be very, very careful, because chiros, I know that there are people that swear by chiros, but please don't. If you have a complex condition, these are not the people to go to. And they will try to lure you in, because they're very smart. They are smart and they're knowledgeable about these conditions, but they just don't have the medical expertise, the training, the education to really treat these kinds of things. It helps you to avoid trendy or politically driven fads. And we're seeing a big surge in politically driven fads right now. The ivermectin thing, the hydrochloroquine or whatever it's called, and a lot of people with long COVID or with vaccine side effects are sort of going over to the dark side, so to speak, and now they're avoiding Western medicine completely and doing all of these alternative weird things because maybe it's helped them. But again, just because it helped you doesn't mean that it's going to help everybody. Long COVID and vaccine side effects are going to manifest themselves differently in each person, just like Lyme disease, MS, all these other types of conditions, and different things are going to help different people. And one of the things that I see is that people will have an issue, someone will have a vaccine side effect, and suddenly it's like they look to a certain group that has certain political beliefs, and they go to them for help. And those people also gravitate towards specific types of medicine, alternative medicine, a lot of, regenerative stuff, stem cells, things like that are very popular among certain political groups. And it shouldn't be. Medicine, especially things that are legit and do work, should not be, it should be apolitical. So if you see that something is kind of politically driven, or there's a certain political group that is very drawn to a certain type of treatment, again, you need to ask yourself, you need to be cynical about it and say, why is that? Why are all of these, liberals or conservatives, drawn to this specific thing? We can see that with veganism. There's a certain political leaning that is drawn to veganism, and for a lot of us who are sick, who are chronically ill, veganism does not work. It can actually make us worse. There are doctors, and I talked about this in one of my exosomes updates, that there are doctors that know how to sweet talk you. Some of them are bad at it. Some of them are very, very, very good at it. And there are doctors that will empathize with you, that sound like they're just really relating to you and, oh, I'm so sorry, and that kind of thing. Some of them are being genuine. Some of them are not. So you have to read between the lines. Do they have some kind of financial interest in getting your business? For example, the phone call with the scientist, you guys can see that in my exosomes playlist. He was telling me that exosomes, that he would recommend stem cells over exosomes. His research is in stem cells and stem cells and stem cells and stem cells, but he's also the chief scientific officer of a stem cell clinic. So obviously he's going to want me to go with stem cells, which I can only do in a different country, preferably at this clinic that he's invested in, because it's financially, it's profitable for him. And he also has funders. He revealed some things on the phone call with me. He also has funders that I'm assuming he's the one that tries to get the funding for this clinic. So yeah, of course he's going to say stem cells are much better than exosomes. So you've got to do your research. And cynical people, like I said, we question everything. We're going to overanalyze everything, and we're going to research. And that's where cynicism really helps. When it comes to this stem cell clinic that I'm talking about, I did look into it. I did a deep dive into it. And you really don't even have to do a deep dive. Most of these places have social media accounts. There's Facebook groups. There's a lot of people that have already gone to these clinics. I did a deep dive, and I saw that there were some people associated with the clinic that could be problematic. And I did do a few videos on that as well. Why? Because I questioned this guy's motives. And I asked myself, why would I go to that stem cell clinic? What is that stem cell clinic offering me that I can't get here in the US, with exosomes and, all of that? And so I started looking into some of the people associated with this clinic. Granted, I don't know their exact association with the clinic, but because they talk about it so much, that's another thing. Why do some people talk about a certain protocol, a certain clinic, a certain stem cell clinic, or a certain medical clinic? Why are they recommending that I go to this place? Do they have some kind of financial investment in this place? And that's where a lot of this research comes in handy, because you will find out, eventually that there's something, financial there. And that financially, it will save you money if you're cynical about it and if you question, because the more questions you ask and the more you question people's motives, you may uncover that it is just a financial gain for them and a financial loss for you. So you want to flip that around and make it a financial gain for you and a loss for them if they're being disingenuous. You learn how to hustle back, and that's the big lesson to be learned from this. You learn how to hustle back by being cynical, by questioning everybody's motives. You learn how to hustle back. I hate to say it, but chronic illness is a hustle. You're going to see a lot of doctors. Some of them are going to, even if they can't help you, they still are going to try to make money off of you. There was one guy in Thousand Oaks who's a Lyme literate physician, but he actually takes insurance. And we all know if it's a Lyme letter physician that takes insurance, he's going to be limited in what he can do for you. And he knew he couldn't do anything for me, but he still, told me, hey, you might want to try this supplement or this multivitamin. Ask the front desk because the money's going to go to him, right? I'm going to buy it there, even though I have a lot of stomach issues and I probably can't take it. And the money's going to go into his pocket. He was going to make some kind of money off of me, even though he knew he couldn't help me. So you learn how to hustle back and you start strategizing. Sorry, my throat is drying up. You start strategizing and asking yourself, okay, how can I make this advantageous for myself? How can I put myself first in this situation? And I'm going to give you a really good example with what I did when it came to the exosomes and stem cells. If you haven't seen that playlist, there's an exosomes playlist, and I believe there might be a stem cell playlist where I talk about, my different consults with different doctors and what I gained from these different consults at stem cell clinics. At the end of the day, when I had done multiple consults, I think I did 4 consults for clinics in Mexico, and I spoke to another doctor here in Northern California, or not in Northern California, in California, that use exosomes, and there are several other doctors, I believe in San Diego or in the San Diego area, that use exosomes. And it came down to this. I could go to Mexico and I could do stem cells. There is the chance that I will have a bad reaction because they are cells, and that I may not respond well to them. But I'm also in a different country. Remember, stem cells are illegal here in the US. Exosomes are heavily regulated here in the US, and there's a lot of controversy over that as well, which I will get to. But if I go to Mexico, this is perfectly legal. They can infuse me with stem cells. Whatever happens, happens. I come back home because I don't live in Mexico. I have to come back home, and I have to come and live in the country where I'm from. And I'm thousands of miles away from most of these clinics. There's one clinic that was very close, that was sort of my front runner because it was closer. But for the most part, it's a drive. It's several hours. That's the closest. I'm not going to go back there the next day and be like, hey, things are not going well. So the fact that one of the treatments that I was considering was based here in the US with the doctor that I've been with for 10 years, I was like, well, I know how the FDA feels about this treatment. I know how the state medical board is going to feel about this treatment or about my doctor doing this treatment. And legally, I have the advantage here in the US because I'm going to have the FDA, I'm going to have the state medical board. I'm going to have everybody on my side, even a lawyer and attorney. They're going to look at the case and they're going to say, yeah, they should have been doing this, or you can get your money back pretty easily. It's a pretty easily won case. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but whatever. But I knew I had that. I knew that I would have the FDA and I would have the state medical board on my side. And if I had to fight to get my money back because the treatment did not go well, it would be doable in the US. I wouldn't be able to do that in Mexico because it's legal there. And anything that goes wrong, they're just going to say, oh, well, it's legal. We didn't do anything illegal. Anything illegal or anything legally questionable. And on top of that, it's tourism dollars. And Mexico is going to protect their tourism. They're going to fight for their tourism to the death. You're not going to win because that's money in their pocket. That's money that goes not just to the businesses there, but to the country. Tourism is Mexico's probably biggest economy, and you're just not going to win. So you learn how to hustle. Yes. Am I having side effects? Am I having maybe negative effects or a negative outcome from the treatment? Yeah. But at the end of the day, the people that are going to be screwed, we're all going to be screwed. Whereas in Mexico, I'd be screwed and the doctors would have their money and they could care less, right? Which again is probably why I had the scientist kind of urging me to do stem cells. And he's on the side of stem cells because he knows that there could be consequences for him as well. Even though he may or may not know where his product is going, he's going to play it safe, right? He's going to do what's best for him. And my thing is that you need to do what's best for you and what's going to keep you safest, or at least give you the upper hand. And that's why I say you have to learn how to hustle back. Um, you learn to also hustle between doctors, which is, again, I have these two doctors right now, one a researcher and one my physician, and I'm speaking to both, even though I know that they probably don't want me talking to both. I'm speaking to both because that's what you got to do. I'm cynical, and I'm not. I'm gonna question one's motives, and I'm gonna question the other one's motives, and I'm gonna talk to both, and we're gonna. I'm not play them against each other, but I'm gonna get both perspectives. I'm not going to just talk to one and be like, oh, okay, I believe you. So that's where cynicism can get you. Sometimes you just gotta go behind someone's back and get a different story. And you do learn to read people's body language and behavior because you're constantly asking yourself, is this person being sincere? They sound sincere, but are they actually genuinely sincere? And that's where their actions come into play. Are their words matching their actions? Um, I know, like I said, cynicism isn't typically not seen as a good trait, but when your health and your life is on the line, you do have to really question and be asking, asking the tough questions, or going, like I said, kind of going behind their back and saying and talking to another doctor. And that's why I went to my neurologist and I took the GAD antibody test to her, and I asked her, I said, what is this? And she was like, that's nothing, that's bogus. Right? Don't take anything at face value. Even if it's a doctor that you trust, that you've trusted for many years, don't take anything at face value because you can be making a really bad move by doing that. But at the same time, do what your doctor is asking you to do. Follow, diet, supplements, whatever, within reason, as long as you're not hurting yourself, but always ask questions. And that's kind of the point here. So I hope this is helpful. It has been helpful for me to be this way, even though a lot of people say it's not a good way to be. But I really think that it is helpful, especially when you're looking into expensive treatments and treatments that are experimental. So thank you so much for